get it. What is it about Halo that divides gamers so completely? On one hand, you have people who are so in love with this game that it was the highest selling Xbox game of all time for quite a while, and each successive game has sold millions of copies in their first weeks. The multiplayer had some of the highest player counts ever recorded, and when they pulled the service for Halo 2, there were people who continued to play it for days straight in order to keep them up and running just a little bit longer. And then you have the haters, who screamed that Halo is all that is wrong with game design, a samey, unimaginative stock standard shooter with no redeeming qualities. I even saw a comment recently stating that Halo has no unique features or gameplay mechanics, and was just the same as every other shooter. Now I fall about halfway in between the two, but even I thought I had to put this to rest right away. The original Halo was an amazing cavalcade of new gameplay techniques, graphical styles, and story progression. It's simply because everyone copied these features from Halo that they really seem stock standard now. Let's start at the beginning with the level design. Halo had a vast array of different tilesets for levels, everything from grasslands and canyons to cliff faces to spaceships, both alien and human, snow levels, swamps, etc. Obviously this was nothing new, as developers had been setting their games in different locations for years. However, the levels themselves were something new. Mainly the implementation of large open spaces and very long-range combat. Again, Halo didn't pioneer long-range open spaces. I mean, the original Delta Force in 1998, for example, allowed you to keep on walking out into the distance forever, and heavily relied on sniper rifles and scopes. However, Halo managed to seamlessly blend long-range open combat with tight, narrow corridors, with the same weapons and same control styles. Simple things like having your targeting reticle turn red only when your target was in optimum range for your weapon helped players know which weapons were better suited for what situation. Second thing is drivable vehicles. And again, Halo was not the first to implement drivable vehicles, however they were one of the first to just have vehicles which you could drive at any time. You could choose to drive or not. You could often choose what vehicle you wanted to drive. You could get out of your vehicles at any time. And also, if you stopped your vehicle near some allies and there were some spare seats, your allies would pile in and you would drive around with them riding shotgun. All of the vehicles in the game controlled exactly the same and yet handled differently. The Warthog was the basic Jeep-style car, which could move very fast, turn very quickly, make jumps, and had a mounted minigun on the back. However, the Warthog was liable to flip over at the slightest provocation, dumping all its passengers out into the dirt. It also couldn't turn on ice. The Scorpion tank was a slow-moving, all-terrain vehicle which could take a beating, drive on anything, and had a machine gun and a cannon. It also had room for up to 4 allies to jump on and shoot from the sides. However, this vehicle couldn't make jumps. It was slow and couldn't turn very well. Covenant Ghosts are hovercraft able to strafe. Banshees can fly, and on and on and on. Each vehicles have strength and weaknesses, all handling differently, and yet all using the same buttons to control. Halo also featured 2 types of grenades, which was about standard for games at the time. One was a standard human frag grenade, the other an alien plasma grenade, which would stick to enemies. This in itself was not too mind-blowing. However, what was the fact that these grenades had their own fire button. Before this point, grenades were equipable weapons which you had to select before throwing. In a game like Half-Life, where there were frag grenades, trip mines, and det packs, this meant you had to press the grenade button multiple times to choose the grenade type you wanted, select it, throw it, and then switch back to your weapon. In Halo, in the middle of firing your weapon, you could choose to throw a grenade with the press of a single button. This revolutionized the way in which grenades and accessories were thought of and used in games. And then the same as the grenade button, the melee button revolutionized how melee was thought of in games. In early games, the melee weapon was just a starting weapon. It didn't do much damage, but never ran out of bullets, making it a good fallback weapon if you were low on ammo. But introducing the bash from one of your guns made melee a viable part of close quarters combat. Out of ammo and need to reload? Don't bother, just beat him with your gun. And making this just a single button rather than making it a selectable weapon state, like GoldenEye did with the sniper rifle, meant that it was very easy to smash someone across the face and then just go straight back to shooting. Another revolutionary technique was the 2-weapon rule, which became very common after Halo. Back when shooters were primarily made for PC, you had a whole bunch of number buttons at the top of your keyboard, meaning that the developers would quite often have your character lugging around 9 different weapons or even more. Moving on to consoles, however, presented a problem, in that there simply weren't enough buttons on the controller. So Halo streamlined this by having a wide variety of weapons, all for different users, but having the character only able to carry 2 at once. Not only did this make a game a little more realistic, but it also had people making choices on how they preferred to play the game and to react to different enemy types. You like long-range, high-powered guns? Use the sniper rifle. With an 8x scope and mostly one-hit kills, it's the perfect gun for open battlefields. However, you can only carry about 30 bullets, so use them wisely. Prefer spray and pray style gunplay? Use the assault rifle. With up to 600 bullets and a wide firing radius, it's great for hosing down corridors. What about close-up, high-damage guns? Try the shotgun. Hate reloading? Try the battery-powered plasma rifle. Like explosions? Use the rocket launcher. Not only did it help people feel that they were making important choices about the game, but it also helped with replay value, where you could try different sections with different weapons and see the results. Graphically, it was quite advanced as well. It was one of the first games to make good use of bump maps. These textures have been replaced with the more advanced normal maps now, however when they first came out they were amazing. They basically added fake depth to materials, meaning that grooves in the texture could just be painted there and didn't need to be modelled. This really helped with the nice torch effects and giving detail to the world without having to have really high polygon counts. They also gave a lot of attention to their lighting effects and lens flares. As I said, the torch effects were very advanced for its day, with the light being attached to the weapons and having a nice stippling effect on the edges. The sun flares were also very good, with the light shining through gaps in the leaves being an early predecessor to the god rays which are prevalent in modern games, and different coloured flares added a good sense of mood and character to different levels. And finally, they actually paid attention to the story. Although your character was the strong silent type, he was not a silent protagonist. He spoke when necessary. There were characters, there was a story arc, there were twists, and all of it did not get in the way of the gameplay, it just served to move the game along. You would revisit areas you'd been to before, and they would have changed. You hopped around this strange ring world, chasing people, control rooms, weapons, and so on. Sure, the story was not very complex, but it was suitable to younger audiences. It was not full of swearing, not full of gratuitous gore. The good guys won, the bad guys lost, and it was just a good bit of fun. Now, I don't want any of the comments here to be, "Oh, you're just a Halo fanboy," because I definitely am not. I hate that a game that was so revolutionary for its day just churned out sequels which had exactly the same gameplay mechanics. I played about 3 hours of Halo 2 and turned it off in disgust. Halo 3 was pretty but didn't grab me, and seemed much the same again. Halo Reach tried to be a little different and failed horribly. I didn't like that the interior corridors all looked exactly the same, with 4 different tile sets, and were basically just labyrinths full of enemies. Yes, there were plenty of things wrong with Halo, but the gameplay mechanics were not one of them. Now obviously when you take everything I've said and apply it to modern games, you'll notice that most of the current gen games have these features. But how is it that in only 10 years we've completely forgotten that Halo was the game that started them all? Everything from regenerating health to grenade buttons to squad-based gameplay to open outdoor maps and so many other features all link back to this revolutionary game. They didn't call it Combat Evolved for nothing. And yet no one can remember that? I just don't get it.